Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. Today I wanted to mention the Benchmade Buggout again, but not for the bug-out itself, but for what I deem to be the best bug-out killer in the world, which unsurprisingly is also made by Benchmade, and is this Taggedout right here. This Taggedout to me is the absolute pinnacle of the Benchmade Buggout concept when it comes to Benchmade made items. The Taggedout is a hunting, as you can see right here on the box, knife, while the Buggout is thought out as an outdoors and EDC blade. That to me is already an indication as to which of these knives is the better one. If you had to choose between a knife that was designed for hunting and demanding environments or just everyday ultralightness, which one would you get? To me, the answer is evident. It would be the hunting blade. And we'll see why in just a moment in detail. Let's go for a few metrics at first. The Taggedout comes in at around 60 grams and the Buggout at around 54 grams. So we have a 6-gram difference between those two knives. To me, that's absolutely not significant. 6 grams is nothing. Especially when we consider that even here at 60 grams, you have an extremely lightweight knife, even by today's standards. So 6 grams, nothing. The weight to me is virtually the same. Now, dimensions. There's actually only one dimension that I'm going to measure here, and that's the width of the handle. Here we get 11.5 to maybe 11.6 millimeters. And on the Buggout, we have 10 millimeters for the Buggout and 11.5. That to me is actually significant. Why? Because I can feel it in the hand. When it came to weight, I couldn't feel the 6 grams difference. It's unnoticeable. But the 1.5 millimeter girth difference is actually noticeable when gripping the knife. And that, to me, especially for an EDC and utilitarian design, is a metric I want to pay attention to. So we do have a more girthy handle on the Taggedout. Now, let's go and take a look at the inside of the knife right here. As you can see, the steel insert goes out to the first pillar here. On the Buggout, the steel insert stops rather quick. It's not the same. I'm not sure it's very noticeable for you, but it's not the same. There is a little bit less steel inside, which means there's less rigidity. And you can definitely feel that when gripping and using the knife. The Taggedout, it is much more rigid. There's much less flex, and the knife keeps its shape much more readily than this Buggout here that's very easy to deform and to twist on itself. So the Taggedout feels better in the hand and is evidently a bit more heavy duty. All that for 6 grams difference, let me remind you. Now the blades, the Buggout has a smaller blade. The Taggedout has about half a centimeter more usable blade. Now to the handles. To me, they are essentially the same when it comes to dimensions. Yes, the Taggedout will have a slightly longer handle, as you can see, but that barely makes any difference when it comes to gripping the knife. However, there is one major difference, and that is in the texturing. The texturing here is a little bit finer, but definitely more grippy than that of the Buggout. Plus you get jimping here on the finger choil, which is very appreciable, and you get jimping on the top of the blade on the Taggedout, which you don't have with the Buggout. So more jimping and more overall grippiness on the Taggedout. Now let's go to clips. Obviously it's going to be quick as they are basically the same. Now let's comment back a little bit on the blades. The Taggedout doesn't have a thumb stud, it has a deployment hole, which to me is superior to a thumb stud. It won't get caught in whatever you're cutting. And for a hunting blade, that's very important, but also for an EDC blade. I do prefer a finger hole rather than a thumb stud. So you get a thumb stud, of course, for the bug out. And one maybe slightly deciding factor for you is the fluidness. The bug out, and this is a brand new bug out, isn't as fluid as it could be. Of course, that can be addressed with a little bit of oil and maybe some tweaking of the pivot, but let's compare with the tagged out. And the tagged out is actually drop shot out of the box. And that is impressive, especially for a Benchmade. So yeah, I do prefer the fluidity of the tagged out of the box. Now let's go to steels. The tagged out in this version is CPM 154, and of course the base bug out here is S30V. S30V will have better edge retention than CPM 154, slightly better, but CPM 154 is more resistant to microchipping, and that is very important. Given that this blade is supposed to be a utility blade and a hunting blade, if you had to cut some sinew and maybe fur and dirty skin, etc., you want a more chip resistant, especially microchip resistant steel. And in this case, Benchmade made, to me, the right choice and chose CPM 154 for the tagged out over S30V. But honestly, to me, both those steels are very, very similar. So let's rewind a little bit. We have extremely similar steels, the same locking mechanism, the same handle material, the same pocket clip. So both those knives are basically the same, even the price is the same. Both those base versions can be gotten for around 160 to 170 euros in my country. So everything between those knives is the same, even the brand. So what can differentiate these knives? And to me, there are only two metrics that matter here. That is the blade. The tagged out is a clear winner. The blade is longer with more cutting edge. The blade is taller. The blade isn't burdened by a thumb stud. It has jimping, and it's more beautiful with this magnificent booby shape. The tagged out wins when it comes to blade. And the second metric that matters to me between those knives is the aesthetics. And to me, the bug out is basically as vanilla as they come. You've got a very neutral blade and not very detailed handle scales. The tagged out, although rather minimalistic too, has a bit more detail to satisfy the eye. You get some slight sculpting here on the handle, a more detailed checkering, some more jimping, and an overall more defined shape with more accentuated curves. So, to me, the tagged out, for the same price, basically the same steel, the same handle material and the same weight, is the clear winner thanks to its better blade and more aesthetically pleasing design overall. If you don't agree, or if you do agree, and if I missed a couple points, which I'm sure I did, don't hesitate to share in the comments. I'm looking forward to reading them. Do give me your experiences and your opinions on both those blades, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.